Hello, I'm Leslie Corpus, and today I am going to be covering Scotland's celebration for the Day of the Dead. I'm going to share my screen now with everyone to start this presentation. Okay, let's go ahead and go here. All right, so let's go ahead and start. The Scottish celebration for the Day of the Dead is called Samhain, and I am positive that I am mispronouncing that, but the way I will be pronouncing it today is Samhain. Samhain, sorry. So let's go ahead and get the gist of it. What is the meaning of Samhain? Samhain is a Gaelic festival with its roots being traced all the way to the Celtic pagans. And the Gaelic language is actually one that is very nearly long forgotten by modern times. This celebration is for celebrating the end of the harvest season, and it welcomes the darker half and the darker end of the year, which stirs us towards winter. So in our present time, we celebrate what we call Halloween, and which can be traced back over 2,000 years to this Celtic festival, symbolizing the end of summer. Halloween is really just a more modern version of Samhain. And the Celtic pagans have always celebrated it on the 31st of October, the last day of the harvest. This was and is a very popular celebration in Scotland, Ireland, also in Wales and the Isles of Man. And even though for a few years, this celebration did see a change on the date, the date shifted to sometime in May every year due to the church and changes that were happening within the church. They were coming up with All Saints Day, which became All Hallows Day, and then that changed to, and then Samhain changed to All Hallows Eve, then what is now known as Halloween. But again, it really is the same celebration, the same tradition, just with its own unique origin. This was celebrated, as we mentioned, the 31st of October, which back then, during the original celebrations, that meant that it was the day that the cattle was brought from their fields and they were slaughtered for the winter. Bonfires added a very important element to the celebration, being fire. So bonfires would be lit all throughout different towns because they were thought to cleanse and to ward off any unwanted evil spirits. The celebration centers on fire, of course. If you look up images of Samhain, you will instantly come up with a lot of images on fire, just pictures about fire everywhere, and not little ones at that, not tiny little bonfires anymore. The images contain very big fires actually throughout in the midst of a festival, which is called the Fire Festival, about which I will be going into more detail in a bit. It also centers on witches, on spirits, and overall the supernatural. Scots believed that on this day, it's easier to cross the boundary into the other world, and the spirits, which another name for spirits is AOC, they could also cross over to ours. So picture it as a veil that on any other day of the year could be considered thick. But on this one night, the 31st of October, it is said that the veil thins, making it very easy for a crossover. And because of that belief is how they came up with guising. Guising is disguising. Parents would disguise their children into costumes, but it was not just any costume about their favorite character of a play or a book. Since there were no movies back then, they couldn't disguise themselves as any actors. That was not the point of guising. The point of guising was to disguise your child as a scary creature, something that would scare off any unwanted evil spirits. It was thought that by disguising them as a scary creature, that in an actual scary creature that was able to cross over into our world on that night would turn away from the child, confusing it for their own, for one of them. Now we're getting into the Fire Festival. This is the 1995 version is where at different locations in Edinburgh each year, the transition from summer into winter is performed. So they have a big performance that is portrayed through dancing and through music. It also symbolizes transitions in life. So while you're watching, if you're lucky enough to go to Scotland during Samhain, as I actually hope to go one day, um, you will see that they're not just performing through dancing and music that literal transition of the seasons. It also symbolizes any changes in a person's life, any new directions that we take. And they actually have, they are presented through, it's like a battle. It's seen as a battle, that performance. And they have a what's called a Kaliak, I believe. A Kaliak, which is the goddess, it's a goddess of destiny, I believe, if I'm not wrong, but I will be getting into it in a bit more. And anyways, that goddess, she is like the uh, ultimate judge. So once that judge decides who won, which is always winter, of course, that is when summer loses. Another transition, I'm sorry, another tradition that has a different shape now in our present times is the carving of lanterns. Originally, the Scots would carve lanterns out of turnips instead of pumpkins. That again, to ward off evil spirits. That is a major goal of the night, to ward off evil spirits, because you do not want them knocking on your door and threatening you. Now we're talking about why Scotland is a perfect setting for Samhain. It has an amazing atmospheric and vast selection of haunted castles that is able to bring Samhain night to life. For example, you have the Sanquhar Castle in Dumfries. This castle is now really just an old ruin. It used to be fully standing, of course, but now all the stone is just crumbling away. So it's actually, you can see it in the picture that the property is fenced off. You could probably see here in between the grass, there's also a green fence. And any tourists, any locals, nobody can actually go through it and enter the property or get any closer to it. They're just able to observe from that distance. But even so, it is said that the ghost of John Wilson still haunts the castle till this day. He was wrongly imprisoned and hanged there in the 16th century. And any locals will tell you that they can hear groans and rattling chains at night. So that's pretty creepy, perfect for Samhain night. A very popular and beloved poet is Robert Burns, with his poem called Halloween, which he published in 1745. He was a very beloved poet who wrote about myths, legends, and traditions of Scotland. He was born in Alloway, Ayr, in Scotland, and his poem Halloween, the second verse, is actually cited here. It says, I'll just go ahead and read the translation of it that is a little better understood. It says, some merry, friendly country people together did convene to burn their nuts and pull their plants and keep their Halloween full blithe that night. So it's just narrating a bit about the traditions that Scots have for their Halloween night, for their Samhain. Samhain today. So if you ever find yourself in Scotland during the celebration, there's actually quite a few things you would benefit from participating in. For example, the fire festival, like I mentioned earlier, the Kaliak. She is a Celtic representation of the divine hag goddess who decides that the fate of the summer and winter kings. That is what is being represented at the performance for the fire festival. And every year it takes place at a different location. And actually in 2019, when I was researching this, it showed that it was celebrated in Calton Hill. It is more common to still see the tulip lanterns today than it is to see the bonfires. So Even though both traditions originated from Scotland, it seems that people still participating in creating their tulip lanterns is still it's the tradition of the two that have survived a bit more to this day. The bonfires only really during the fire festival are they more common to see. And also, very interesting, there are what's called Callanized standing stones on the Isle of Lewis. So for any Outlander fans like myself, that would be a wonderful Samhain moment of your own to have if you ever find yourself visiting Scotland. Even if it's not during Samhain, it would just be amazing to be able to go there and see for yourself, and you could even recreate your own Outlander moment. And the stones are said to be from between 3,000 and 5,000 years old. There is an image of the stones right here. You can see they were actually man-made. Back then, all those years ago, men colonizing the area decided to create those standing pillars of stone. And it's not just this one. There are many throughout the country. But these are some that you can go ahead and go see. This concludes my presentation. Thank you everyone for taking the time to listen to this. Thank you.